Hello gardeners! We are back for another garden tour and it's been a little while. I didn't really film any in August. We were away for quite a bit, and so now we're in the early part of September, which here in Zone 3 is really the wind down phase for our season. Roughly speaking, we can expect frost in around like the September 15th. So it's really kind of like the final days to hopefully get as many things off the plants before the frost hits, or just kind of like triage, you know, what things are sensitive to frost versus which ones aren't. So I'm going to take you around and show you what's left, what I haven't pulled, plants that are just loaded with everything. I've done some succession plantings, so there's things I've pulled and already reseeded, and I've got some sort of cool season fall crops going. We did a bunch of work to our front yard. I've yanked a whole bunch of things, so it's a very different space than the last time I shared my garden with you. Can't wait to take you around and show you where things are at. We'll see you guys in a moment. So behind me here is all of my tomato plants, and overall I'm absolutely thrilled with how the stringline trellis went for supporting them. I did have to keep up maybe a little bit better than I did for pruning and keeping to train things up. Things got a little bushy at certain points, but I found it wasn't too bad to go through and just sort of do some pruning, add some new strings, kind of get them going up, you know, a few new strings, maybe a few more than I wanted, but overall they've done really good. Right now, pretty much all the plants are right loaded, from my yellow cherry tomatoes, I've got little orange ones, I've got some tomato paste tomatoes happening, and I do need to do a really big harvest today because there's some that are on there that are really nice and red and ready to eat. And unfortunately, just about 2 weeks ago, while we were away on holidays, my plants were all loaded up with fruit. Some of them were still pretty green. We got a crazy amount of rain. Pretty much 48 hours it rained straight. And a bunch of the big tomatoes that were sitting on the plants, basically they split. And so I harvested a whole bunch of those, took them all into the house. Unfortunately, they're not something that I'm going to be able to like blanch and preserve, but enough of them I got off of the plants before any sort of funky like mold and weird things started to happen, so I've just left them to ripen in the house. They're actually all ready today for making into whatever, soup, salsa, that kind of thing. I'll have to cut away a little bit, but that's kind of how it goes. Overall though, maybe only about a third of the tomatoes that were on the plant split, so I'm pretty happy with that, kind of practicing my gratitude because it could have been a lot more. And I got a lot more to harvest today. I typically do anywhere from freezing, canning, making into sauce, salsa. Those are kind of my favorite things to do with my tomatoes. The cherry tomatoes never last that long, but sometimes a cherry tomato salsa will happen. My pepper plant, same thing. Like I really need to dig around in those guys because there's some really sneaky ones already. I can see one plant over here that I missed a whole bunch on, so I'm gonna need to do that. My basil that's all in here is ginormous. I really need to make a batch of basil because they're gonna be sort of no good anymore. As the end of the season, basil doesn't really like the cooler nights that we're getting, so I gotta do a harvest on that. And I've got little patches of onions, kind of sneaky onions hiding in and around here. There's quite a bit of thrip damage, which I will kind of give you a closer look at. So these are at the end of their life, but you can kind of see, if I can get it to focus, that they've been kind of chewed on. They've got like that mottled spotting, and that's happened kind of all over the place. These are my eggplant. They've gotten a lot of thrip damage. The tomatoes were really starting to show. Peppers, thrips really like as well. You can sort of see that little speckly type thing. Now overall, all of the outdoor plants, I mean, they're resilient enough that they can fight it off, even though you can see, you know, some leaves like this one, there's a fair bit of thrip action. This was because prior to our rains, we had basically a season full of drought. And drought and dry, that is sort of where thrips really thrive. So unfortunately, they don't look pretty, but for the most part, there is still lots of edible things living on these plants. So this big bed behind me here, you might notice there's sort of some big, it looks like empty patches in the middle there. Those are areas where I had carrots, turnip, what else? Some of the spinach that I was letting go to seed, I've pulled. Some of the squash plants that were just way behind and never really did much of anything, I've long since yanked those guys. And I'll just give you a quick look at what I've filled in the holes with. So there's a little bit of lettuce left here. They're kind of sad, and I would say those are at the end of their life. I'm going to get some more going inside pretty soon. This was my turnip patch here, and the turnips just got hit real hard with flea beetles, and so I had some kind of spinach and stuff like that I've thrown in here. These are borage that are trying to sprout. Those I'm just gonna yank. But yeah, the flea beetles did massive damage to my turnip, and so I ended up harvesting them way sooner, but I got a decent harvest, so that was okay. This is one little patch of carrots here. These guys got planted on the later side, so these are gonna go right until probably after frost. I've got these little sections, so you might notice that there's some new things sprouting, and a lot of it. So this was all carrots, this was peas and more peas, and so I have pulled, because the peas were all done. Carrots I've already probably halfway eaten most of them, and these are the spinach seeds. So I left spinach to go to seed. I got a lot of seeds from them, which is really exciting, and spinach around here tends to bolt in the summertime, so about halfway through August or so, I reseeded lots of spinach, and I actually wasn't too sure how the seeds were going to do because they were kind of wet when I pulled them off of the plants, and so I thought maybe some of them had spoiled. So I overseeded pretty heavily, and you can see that it was not necessary. The seeds were plenty good still, so I'm pretty excited about that. So here's some sort of bush beans. I had a bunch of random beans that I kind of just threw all over the place. So some of these, like this is a pole bean that is climbing its way all the way around my orac. But these are some sort of yellow bush beans. And same thing, you can kind of see there's all of these like mottled spotting on it. That is the thrip damage. So they look terrible, but they're still producing. I got some random little patches of peas. I threw peas in pots, but I had extras, so I kind of stuck them in and around here. I've got some chard that I do still have under bird netting, even though I think the birds have finally eased up, but not taking that chances because I don't have too many more greens that I'm harvesting right now. Another patch of spinach. As you can tell, I really like spinach. There will be lots of freezing and smoothies and all sorts of stuff happening with this stuff. And this section, there used to be a low tunnel here that I had fabric over, and I had kale and broccoli and all that kind of stuff. Well, I wasn't being a very good plant mama, and the bugs got it. So unfortunately, that little patch that I just showed you that should have a bunch of kale in it, I had loads of kale plants happening, and the cabbage moths always find their way in. One of the things I'm going to be doing differently next year is finding a really wide landscape fabric so that I don't have to double layer it and stuff like that, because I think that's how they got in. And anyways, I was away a whole bunch, and it doesn't take long. Once the moths get inside, they can't get back out. They lay a million eggs, they turn into caterpillars, and it's a lot of work to try and reclaim plants when they've pretty much been half devoured. So for my sanity and time's sake, I just yanked them all because I kind of knew the end of the season was coming, and even though they're cold hardy, we do tend to get a big wave of flea beetles that comes through sort of when the temperatures start to drop, especially after a year like this with it being really dry, and that's what ended up happening. They mowed down on all of my turnips. So I'm kind of glad that I did, because I was able to get spinach in the ground, and I know that I'm going to be able to get a spinach harvest now because I got that early enough. So sometimes when you lose one thing, there are benefits that end up coming from it. So here's a bunch of pole beans. They're a little bit late to the party, but there is, as you can see, quite a few beans on it. They're not a cold tolerant plant, so they're getting a little bit sad. They've got some thrip damage and things like that, but they're still producing. And even though this is in full sun for the moment, most of the day it does not get all that much sun, which just means a fairly slow plant. I've got quite a bit of lettuce happening underneath here, still under bird netting because I don't have a lot of greens, so I'm protecting those like crazy. Lots more spinach. This was a patch of kale that, same thing, the bugs had got to, so got lots more spinach coming along there. pretty much just an empty space. I'm leaving all the marigolds until very, very end of the season. And this patch, this is my beets and my onions and a little bit of carrots. The carrots are definitely done. I just haven't actually wanted to uncover this yet because that's too much work. I'm going to dig up the onions today, the carrots today, the beets today. So all of this is going to be pulled, and onions are going to be laid to dry. Beets are going to go into the fridge. My zucchinis, they're doing pretty good. The one thing I used these broomsticks that I had a whole bunch of to stand up the zucchinis just to give more space because this is obviously quite crowded. The broomsticks were a little bit too sort of slippery, and so they keep falling back down from the weight of the plant, and then I got to add more wires, and so that's something that I will definitely be using a different stick next year. I find something with texture just works a little bit nicer. So my big strawberry patch here, a lot of these are June bearing, so they're done, but you can see all the runners that are just going wild. They're all over the place. And so I'm kind of training them to fill. I pulled a shrub out of here a couple years ago, so I'm kind of filling in that. But these little alpine strawberries, you can see here, these guys are really fun because they produce all year. Have a little snack. And chives. I'm going to be harvesting these to dry today too, because they're going to be done pretty soon here, and they're really nice to have sprinkled on things in the winter. One of the things that's quickly become a favorite in my front yard is sunflowers. I haven't been growing them for very long, but each year there is more and more and more. And this one little section behind me here, these are sort of the late bloomers. This was kind of the second round of sunflowers that I planted. And I'm really enjoying that they do still have, look at the bees and these colors on them. My other little patch, which is over yonder behind me here, there was a big wall of corn and sunflowers right there, and those were all done. Those were the very first ones that I started. The corn I have pulled. I'm going to make a little video about my corn. But I did notice yesterday, and I'm glad I harvested a bunch of heads off of the sunflowers to save seeds. Yesterday, I caught a squirrel doing his little journey up and down each of my sunflowers, and when he found a head that was just perfectly ready for the seeds to be eaten, he was chewing off the heads and then hiding them away somewhere. So glad I got and grabbed all of those. So this little patch here, this is my kind of herb spiral. I'm hoping that a lot of these end up staying as perennials. They're not perennial to our zone. However, sometimes when they're in sort of a mulched area like this, they will come back each year. So I'm kind of rolling the dice here, but really they're gonna die anyway, so what do I have to lose? And a lot of these are going to get harvested today for drying. So I've got some savory, sage, oregano, bunch of thyme. I got some parsley over there, some rosemary. This perennial space is really one of my favorites because every year it sort of gets bigger, better, more plants start to fill in as I add. These are my cosmos, which they were way behind, and so they shouldn't be flowering right now, but they are. What a gorgeous flower. So I'm really excited for those to be much more developed next year, but they've really come along. I've been watering them really well. There's another patch there. We got some rhubarb. My Heliopsis are really starting to fill themselves in, which is exciting. One of the things that's happened that I'm kind of sad about. So these are tiger lilies, and over here I got some more tiger lilies mixed in with sort of some black and other yellow ones. The lily beetles showed up this year for the first time, and they've been doing quite a bit of damage, and they're really kind of hard to find. You can pretty much just need to dig around in your plants and find them and kill them. That's about the only way you can deal with them, which is kind of unfortunate. So we'll see. Hopefully next year they do okay. So there's always little corners of the yard that, you know, I like to try and sneak things into, and this one little corner patch right here, it gets a good decent amount of sun, and so I plunked a few extra cucumber plants right on the corner here, just because I didn't really have anywhere else to put them. And they looked really terrible for a while. They just didn't really take to being transplanted, which they don't like the roots being disturbed, which is okay. But even though they look sad and horrific for most of the summer, they actually produced quite a lot of cucumbers. So if you have those kind of spaces in your yard, still go for it. There's really, I mean, what are you gonna lose? If you don't have any other spaces to put them and you can still get even a little bit of a harvest out of it, that's amazing. So try it out. The amount of harvest that I get out of weird little corners of my garden is honestly astounding, and so I highly recommend that. Now that is my garden tour. Also, you probably wouldn't know this because I've never showed before, but behind me here we kind of re-landscaped the end of the driveway, and our easement along the front here is finally cleaned up and no more weeds. Yay, I'm so excited about that. But yeah, this is early September garden tour, and it might be the last one that I do. I'm not really sure. We're gonna see what the fall has in store for us, and frost and all that good stuff. But I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, gardeners, and we will see you soon.